Well, good afternoon. My name is Mark Maynard, and I am pleased to welcome you to the Washington Labs Academy webinar series. We hope you find the next hour useful and informative. We have developed this monthly International Approvals webinar series to deal with some of the technical administrative issues that our customers face when obtaining global marketplace product approvals for electronics and electrical devices. We recognize that compliance engineering and certification challenges can be complex, and we're always looking for ways to support our customers. Before we begin, I want to go over a few housekeeping details. First, I hope everyone can see the title slide on your computer. It says Wireless Compliance for Central America and the Caribbean. Next, we have muted everyone's microphone to keep the meeting quality as high as possible. A recording of the presentation is underway and will be sent to all attendees and those who registered for this class today. A full screen view may be preferred. Just select View and Full Screen, and then you can use Escape to return to normal view. We encourage questions during the presentation. We do this by submitting a question by enabling the chat or Q&A icon located at the top or side of your screen and typing your question to the host. We will go through all the questions at the end of the presentation as time permits. We'd like to hear from you. You can see contact information here and at the end of the presentation. All those who attend and are registered will attend the PDF copy of the slide deck today. You can reach out via email to academy@wll.com or to the speakers directly. I estimate this presentation will take about 30 to 40 minutes today, and allowing some time for questions at the end. I'm your presenter today. I'm a Training and Business Development Manager for Washington Labs Academy. I also have a dual role at ACB, American Certification Body, as the International Approvals and Business Development Manager there. I've been working in compliance engineering for over 30 years in EMC, EMI, wireless telecom, product safety, design for the environment, and quality management systems. I'm also very active in the IEEE and immediate past president of the Product Safety Engineering Society, and I'm very active with the annual EMC and Systems Integration and Power Integration Symposium. And I'll provide some information on that symposium at the end. Some vocabulary today, if you're not familiar with some of these terms we use in regulatory compliance engineering. Local representative is a common person to have in place in the country there. It's an in-country agent that the company authorizes, similar to some type of system like the Notary Public that we have here in the United States. So they can officially fulfill a role as a company representative. If you have an office in a company, that would be the preferred local rep, but if you don't, there's these people that you can hire to fulfill that role. And GDP, PPP is gross domestic product on a purchasing power parity basis, which is a economic weighting tool you can use to kind of evaluate the markets, and that's one of the things you can get from the CIA World Factbook, which I'll be talking about next. And you can also find there the world populations ranking for each country, kind of give you an idea of the potential markets there. So the CIA World Factbook is a service provided by the Central Intelligence Agency in the United States. It's a public access website. They allow you to free use of the information there as long as you give them credit, and that's what I'm doing here. All the maps that you see in here and the information on the infrastructure in the countries that I'm going to be talking about today. You can find here. You can look up each individual country and get economic data, technology information on their internet infrastructure, their phone networks, and cell phone networks and things like that to kind of get an idea of what kind of market that might be for your product. So the countries we're going to go through all the countries in Central America, and I'm just going through a few in the Caribbean, and we'll talk about that, why, but the main reason is most of those fall under protectorate of either the United States or European countries like the United Kingdom or France or Spain or Portugal, And so those would fall, those that are CE mark countries would fall under those, so they just accept those marks as proof of compliance in those countries. There's, dozens of little island countries in the Caribbean, but there isn't a lot of activity that has to go on to get your products there. But we'll be covering that later in the presentation. So these countries, agriculture is a large part. A lot of the produce we get in the United States comes from these countries. Fruit, vegetables. Tourism is a very big driver of these economies also in many of the countries. And a lot of them are trying to grow the infrastructures. They've historically been lagging on that, but like the rest of the world, they want to get everybody on the internet and have access to that information and build their economies by trying to modernize their telecom and wireless and cell networks. There are some places that are a lot of instability and conflict, and it's been going on for quite a while. The governments in place may not always be stable. There may be frequent changes, so this is something to be aware of as you enter these market countries. We're going to start off with Belize. It's just to the, it's in the lower right-hand corner of Mexico. It's a popular stop too on the cruises in the Gulf, if you've ever taken one of those. They have a Public Utilities Commission is the telecom authority there. Their website is in English. You can get a lot of good information there. They accept FCC reports along with the grants as proof of compliance, but you're still going to have to make a submittal there. It's just it's basically a paperwork submittal with their forms, and you can have agents there in Central America that can perform those. But you can also get the forms off their website and see what's required there. So basic things that you're used to, the reports, identifying photographs, label samples. They aren't going to require a mark for Belize. They'll usually, if they're using the FCC mark, that'll be what they're relying on as proof of compliance there. And they can also recognize CE reports if you don't have FCC, and so they will review the documentation, make sure it meets their guidelines, make sure that it meets their spectrum requirements. As you know, the frequency spectrum in each country is a national resource for that country, and they are the arbitrators saying what frequencies are allowed to be used for what purposes, what power ratings, what type of modulation, and all those different aspects that they use to keep their spectrum open and clear for their emergency channels and military channels, and make sure there's access for their citizens to have for things like television, radio, and mobile phones, and all those other good things. Here's some of the categories of equipment. You can get in there and you'll see all the usual ones. Category 1 is a lot of the things you would find in a normal resale environment, not specialized equipment, but things like in the category 2 satellite communications equipment. That's more likely to be like a communications company or some type of broadcast network company who's using those things. So that's more technically probably not something you're going to find in an individual user's home. Telecom equipment. So these are things like, the central office phone equipment that connects to the physical network, hardwired equipment, so they want to make sure you're not going to connect anything to it that's going to bring the network down or degrade the network and make it, impact negatively on the communications networks there. And then electromagnetic radiating devices. There are also requirements for things that they're going to have to check the RF on for certain categories of equipment, and they can verify that through the reports. That's what they'll do. So it's advisable that, go ahead and get your FCC reports first. That's what a lot of companies do before they start branching out, because those can be leveraged in a lot of countries in the world, and that includes Latin America, South and Central America countries. So here's kind of a list of submittal documentation. It's something you would typically expect for any type of submittal. Their application, The technical description, that's like the theory of operation, what this product does. Is it a transmitter? What bands does it transmit on? What is it used for? What could it be used for? All those kinds of things where you're describing the equipment. And then the type approval or certificate letter from country origin, that would be the FCC report to grants. Letter of authorization from manufacturer, that's the application form you're saying that we are seeking this approval. Local testing not required if you've got those FCC reports and grants. Local reps not required there, and there's no label marking requirement since they're relying on the FCC. And certs are good as long as the product does not change forever, and as long as you're still not on there. Typical approval times are around 4 to 6 weeks, although officially they say it's a 12-week approval cycle. Costa Rica is between Nicaragua and Panama on the Central American Peninsula, and SUTEL is the agency that's been in place for a number of years. It's Superintendent for Telecommunications. They use the term superintendency as an office of the superintendent, and they accept FCC reports plus grants as proof of compliance. But you still have to go through the agency to go there. Their website is only in Spanish. I found that Google Translate does a pretty good job of Spanish, but don't rely on that as official translation. If you need to communicate, you're going to need an official translator to translate the documents there. What most companies do will go through a local rep there who can handle that paperwork. And all the submittal documents, the things we just went over for believes, it's FCC report, grant, user manual, data sheet on all technical specs, what it does, block diagrams, who your local importer is, which is a requirement there, and they will require samples depending on what type of product it is. If they do request samples, they want it exactly as going to be sold there. What a lot of companies do in these smaller markets is just make one standard configuration, and that's what they sell into those countries, so they don't have to go through this process multiple times. Although some companies, working directly with agency, if you've got a custom configuration, you can, as a lot of the IEEE equipments will do, where you can order your system online and configure it how you want it. They'll do the worst case configuration, but that's going to be a conversation you're going to have with SUTEL and about your particular product. So process is typical what you expect. You've got the documentation you're going to send them, and if there's in-country testing required, they'll be performed there. They have signed original letters to be notarized by Washington Secretary of State. That's where they've got their embassy at, and so this is something an agent would handle. And then they're going to review the reports and letters, and then after 2 weeks after they've received everything, you should receive your approval. So expect 4 to 6 weeks for all the transportation, the mailing and the package delivery and all that kind of stuff. And you're going to have one local importer who acts as your lead. Basically, you can have multiple distributors, but you're going to need one to serve as the administrator over all of them. And when you're going there, they do have a label requirement. It's got to be legible on the product. It can be black and white. And there's 2 different options. Basically, you're putting the certificate number there, and along with the SUTEL mark. El Salvador is on the west coast, just below Guatemala and Honduras, and they've had some political unrest over the last few decades. It seems to be getting a little bit more stable there, and they are trying to grow their infrastructure and expand their telecom there. So the Superintendent General for Electronics Telecommunications, that's their telecom authority, and the actual name in Spanish is right there underneath the SIGET, S-I-G-E-T logo, and they'll accept CE reports as proof of compliance, and but it will have to be approved by the agency. And they do have a English language site. They have several languages available, but if you go to their website in the upper left-hand corner, there's a bunch of flags, little bitty flags, kind of hard to see, but if you recognize the British flag, you can click on that, and that will give you the English language version of the website, and they've got some good information out there you can review. So homologation is a term you'll see. Basically what this means is this is for, communication, telecom equipment. This is the certification process. They're homo means same, and so you're introducing it into their system, so they want, whatever you're connecting to their infrastructure for communications, they want to make sure it's not to degrade anything existing, it's not going to bring down their networks. And so this is another term you'll see, the homologation you'll see in place of wireless compliance or something like that. So they're looking at everything from 3 kilohertz to 3 terahertz, and as I mentioned, the CE RAD reports will be taken as proof of compliance. Guatemala is at the southern end of Mexico, right next to Belize, and you've probably seen it in the news recently. That's where they've been having a pretty massive volcano eruption. It is, the west coast of that, of Central America and South America is on the Ring of Fire in the Pacific, so there's a lot of active volcanoes in that area. But they have set SIT as the Superintendent for Telecommunications Information, and the name in Spanish is given there. So they'll accept CE reports as proof of compliance. They've been around for quite a while, pretty stable agency. Their website, however, is only available in Spanish. And as I mentioned, Google Translate does a pretty good job on that, so anything you want to look at from the documents, you can enter into Google Translate, and it'll detect the language and give it to you in English or whatever language you've chosen for it to translate into. So their SIT is under the Ministry of Communications, Infrastructure, and Housing. And so their tasks are looking at is managing the radio spectrum. It's a valuable resource to this country and all the others. And register those devices, and also, impose sanctions if there's ever any non-compliance or issues with interference. So they're the enforcement agency for those types of things, like the FCC is here. If somebody's got a pirate radio station, and the same kind of thing there. If somebody's got computers that are interfering with communications, they'll investigate and find them. And if there's fines to be levied or stop ships to be issued, they're the ones that will instigate it. So their activities are based on Articles 50 to 70 of their telecommunications law in Guatemala, and you can see, get to that through this link I've provided here. They also work with NGOs. Most of these countries do. There's international telecommunications agencies that try to standardize on different frequencies and things, so they're working with those as a willing participant. And they'll be issuing those any technical reports rating to those, and overseeing the the national table of frequency allocations that they assign to different industries and for different purposes in that country. This is from the website, a couple of frequently asked questions that is included in there. So they've got some information like that on their website, a few sections that are in English that you can access, even though the bulk of it is Spanish. So Honduras, just east of El Salvador and Guatemala, and just above Nicaragua. So CONATEL is the National Commission for Telecommunications. They've got a new logo, which is shown next to the flag, just to the left of it up there. And not so much a logo as in the 5 stars and then the name below it. They accept FCC reports as proof of compliance, although you still have to make submittal through the agency. Their website is Spanish language only. I did verify all these websites. They were active as of a couple of days ago. One of the issues you may face if you go to one of these websites and it gives you a not found error or something, sometimes the power infrastructure in these countries is not always stable. And so there may be power outages, they may be rationing power. So if you go there and you can't find it on one day, try a few hours later, or try the next day. And This is something I've encountered over the years in some of the smaller countries that maybe not have the same number of backups and stable power supplies that power generating equipment that we do that we're used to here in the U.S. So they've been around for over 20 years now and been pretty stable. And the decree there you can look up online if you're interested in the legalese and of the actual regulations that were put in effect. But it's they rely on FCC and their requirements are based on that. So that's their current framework law. Has been in place for over 20 years, although there have been amendments to it over the years for different technologies as they come in. And they have the standard, responsibilities like the FCC does. They're going to oversee all their telecommunications infrastructure, issue the licenses and grants and say what's allowed to be authorized for use in their country. And as technology changes, they're going to be updating and adopting new rules. Next, we looking at Nicaragua. There's been some political unrest going on there with elections and other things. So there's been a number of refugees spilling out of that country into Honduras, and so there's a little bit of instability, but they are a country that has been trying to grow their infrastructure there. So Telecor is their agency, been around for a while. Their website is Spanish language only. CE reports are accepted as proof of compliance. And just a side note on politics, you'll notice mostly like El Salvador and Nicaragua who've had some difficulties with the U.S. government in the past, they will rely on CE Red, and the ones that have better relationships with the U.S. seem to rely on FCC. A lot of countries will accept either one of them. It's just a conversation you need to have with the agency if you only have one and not the other. But most companies now, they're going global. A lot of them, the first step is getting the FCC reports and then getting the CE reports, and then going out to the rest of the world that rely on those reports as a kind of phase. Instead of a instantaneous worldwide turn on the product, they'll phase it. Get into the large markets first, and then spread out to the smaller ones as the product shows acceptance, and reduces some risk involved with that, and reduces expenses on trying to expedite everything. For example, if you're trying to get approvals for these, you don't have FCC reports yet, that means you're going to have to be doing some other testing. So it's really maybe a waste of effort if you can't wait a few weeks for your reports and grants to be issued. So they're looking for those CE Red reports for the wireless technologies and telecom. Panama has worked with the U.S. for a long time. They're the last country in the chain in Central America that connects to Colombia, South America. So ASAP or ASEP is I should say, Panama National Authority. They will accept FCC reports and grants. That's a long-standing cooperation we've had with Panama on the, starting with Panama Canal and then working with their government and getting things set up. Their website is Spanish language only. Has a lot of good information there if you use Google Translate to get the text translated from the site. They'll accept FCC grant report. They do want the Spanish language user manual and technical specifications. They want everything in Spanish when you give it to them. There's an application letter, and it has the original signature, and they have a tax stamp, so you'll definitely need an agent to obtain that unless you've got an office in Panama that can go to the government office to get those tax stamps. They, officially say it's a 6-week timetable once everything's been submitted, but it's usually 3 to 4 weeks to get approvals. And so this is a little bit more than that tax stamp. It's I'm going to butcher Spanish if I try to say that, but that timber fiscal is a special authentication stamp. That's what you have to purchase and apply to it. And it's sort of like a notarized letter in the U.S. and they have to be mailed. They don't want them hand delivered, but that's what the agent can do for you. So looking over to the Caribbean, I'm going to look at the Dominican Republic. It's on the it's an island. If you see down here, the kind of dark green is showing where Dominican Republic is on the right side of that island. The left side is Haiti. Haiti's been having some serious problems ever since the hurricane devastation and other issues that they've had going on there. And there's a lot of relief and non-government organizations, NGOs in there trying to rebuild that infrastructure. So there are some opportunities there, but in general, it's not a good market for consumer products, but Dominican Republic is. So that was why I was selecting it to cover today. And they've got Indotel. They've got it's been an agency around, but I noticed when I was updating this presentation, they've got a new logo as shown next to their flag here. And their website's Spanish language only, but they do accept FCC reports as proof of compliance, but you still have to make that submittal as you do with all these other countries. There are occasionally in Africa, and there's been where they'll just accept outright either FCC or CE, use that FCC mark, or CE as their own proof of compliance, but that's not the case with these Central American countries and the Caribbean ones we're discussing today. So here's calling out their telecommunications law for the Dominican Republic, and they oversee the the telecom infrastructure and the wireless infrastructure and the national radio spectrum, just like the FCC does here in the United States. And they're also the enforcement agency for that. Next, we're going to look at Jamaica. And on the map there, it's a little green. It's south of Cuba. And we're not covering Cuba today. It is still officially a U.S. embargoed country, so as a U.S.-based company, we can't give any advice on importing products or selling products in Cuba. It's one of 5 countries in the world that's got the blanket embargo from the U.S. except for humanitarian aid. If you do have humanitarian aid, there are websites you can go to. Just drop me a email, and I can get you information on that. But we're talking about Jamaica right now. So the Spectrum Management Authority has been around for a while, and the website there is available in English. They were, a former British colony. They have their own independence now, but as most all the languages spoken in these Caribbean countries depends on who the former colonial power was there generally. And Jamaica's because the British were there, it's English. There's French Antilles, there's French, and there's Portugal and Spanish from the Spain and Portuguese settlers there. So FCC reports grants accepted proof of compliance, but you still got to make a submittal. Their Spectrum Management Authority website's given there, got a lot of good information, and is a pretty decent sized market if you're going global to get your products into. As I mentioned, on the it has been around for quite a while, since about 17 years, I guess, and they oversee all the same things FCC does here in the U.S. They're also, as a lot of countries have, their telecom authority is also their postal authority, and so they oversee, all those types of communications, mail, wireless, and hardwired telecom in the country. Similar to the U.S., they have licensing management for radio broadcasters, television broadcasters, and then they have license for these other categories I've given here. Aeronautical. This is from the website. They had one alien amateur, and I'm not quite sure what that is, but I'm sure alien means something different to them, but it's on their website. But it's basically all the, CB, ham radio type stuff that consumers might use, but also their emergency and security services and VSATs. They provide certifications, authorizations, so this is basically a radio license, or ham radio license, and radio technician certificate, type approval certificates for imported radio equipment, which is what most of you will be interested in, spectrum authorizations for island-wide broadcasters. Last one I wanted to cover today is Puerto Rico. It's kind of a trick question one. You may already know the answer to this, but it is a common question I get. What do we have to get to take our products to Puerto Rico? Well, Puerto Rico is a U.S. protectorate, and it's a U.S. territory, has been for quite a while, and so as a U.S. territory, whatever is accepted in the U.S. is accepted in Puerto Rico. So the same FCC and then the NRDL, National Recognized Test Lab, it could be UL or CSA or TUV or whoever the Nationally Recognized Test Lab that you go to under the OSHA. That's the Occupational Health and Safety Administration. They have a Nationally Recognized Test Lab program that takes care of the product safety aspects of it. So I just use UL as a generic term, but it can be any one of those. If you go to if you Google on OHSA and then NRTL, that's OSHA NRDL program, you'll get to the website and they'll have all the different labs that are authorized for product safety testing there. So in general, these are very small markets. If you're a smaller company, they may not, be your cup of tea. But if you're expanding and you want to go out, it's good to know what these are. It's always good to do a evaluation of cost benefit. What's it going to cost to get these approvals versus how many units you think you're going to sell in that country. Are you going to make your money back? Is it economically viable to do that? And that's why I really recommend, using tools like the CIA World Factbook. If you don't have a, full-blown marketing and department that goes out and analyzes these things, it can really be helpful to see what those market sizes are of the populations, the level of education, the infrastructure for the telecom and wireless. Is it going to be a good platform to sell your product into, and are you going to be able to utilize your products? So there's always stuff changing. It's finding those experienced, knowledgeable partners is crucial. I rely on word of mouth. If I'm going to a country I haven't been to before, I'm going to talk to some of my buddies that I used to work with at Dell or other places and say, hey, who's the agent you use in this country? Make sure that we're going with somebody that's not just going to take our money and run, but actually going to get those approvals, going to be timely about it, and someone we can rely on. Industry affinity groups like the IEEE, the Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers, TCBC, Telecommunications, Body Council, ITU, you can Google these terms and find them. ITU is the National Telecom Union, and so they have information on all these that can really help you out as you're trying to expand your products into world markets. So I think we got a few questions in. I'm going to look at them now. So I've got, does your local importer need to specify an individual or an organization? I assume you mean, I'm not, local importer that you're going to have there, they're going to, according to, the information I went over, you're going to be getting a copy of this slide deck today. Some countries require a local representative who may serve as your importer or may just be serving as from a business customs import aspect of it, and making sure the certificates are in place, your products get through customs and get to your distributors and out to the market where they're supposed to be. This does have to be specified. Your importer is going to have to be authorized with a document similar to a notary public signed document that says this person is authorized to represent my company in Nicaragua or whatever the country may be, and authorized to make decisions. They want that, so they have somebody to go to if there's a product recall need, or they need to some kind of urgent situation where they need to contact the company directly. They want to have somebody in country that they can go to. They typically will be retaining copies of the reports and grants, so if they go to them and challenge on any of the documentation, they can produce it, and kind of as your de facto local office there. Now let's look at if I have any on chat. Okay, we've got a few more. Yeah, I noticed you did not include GDP administrative population info like you did for my Africa and Middle East. The main reason is because these are a lot smaller. Uh, I can, before I send this out for distribution, I'll tell you what, I can go in and add that in. It's no problem. I do have it. You know, just like I said, I grab it from the CIA World Factbook. And, oh, the other question was just a repeat of the one that I did. All right. Okay, this has a little bit more. It says, does your local importer need to specify an individual at an organization, or can you simply use a company name, location in case of personnel turnover? Yes, you can. If you've got an agency that you're using, that agency, but the head of the agency or whoever the person is designated there, there's going to have to be a person signing the letter. If they're signing on behalf of the company, then it would, you know, turnover shouldn't matter, but it should be something that you have to update from time to time. That's all the questions I'm seeing for today. I appreciate y'all joining me today. We've got some, if you need additional information on Central America or Caribbean countries or anything else, you can contact me directly by email here. If you've got a project that you're wanting to get started for, you know, international approvals or just, you know, getting your FCC or CE, we can definitely help you here at Washington Labs. General email to start that process, info@wll.com, or you can call the phone. You can go to our website and you can do an application from there if you want. You can also find out a lot more information on our website. If you go to the training section, you'll find the free webinars that are coming up. So next month we're going to do South America, in August on China, and September Japan. You can see the full listing. I think it goes out for the next 12 months at this website address, WLL.com, on the Washington Labs Academy, Washington Labs website. The academy is /US/academy. And one event I wanted to make you aware of, if you're in the Southern California area, Long Beach, just south of Los Angeles, there's going to be a U.S. symposium. The international symposium was last month in Singapore. But if you're like me, I couldn't quite afford my tickets there, so I'm going to be going to Long Beach, and hope to see you there July 30th, August 3rd. This is a 5-day seminar. Monday and Fridays are normally tutorials, a lot of good information. Some are free, some are additional costs, but Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are the traditional part of it with the technical presentations and papers. The exhibition is also Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and there's a lot of good information from, you can see the latest test equipment and other labs and service providers there. Washington Labs is going to be there, and we'd be glad to see you there. Drop by, we got free stuff. And if you need more information on that or the IEEE, you can always contact me. I've got an IEEE email address down here, Maynard at IEEE.org, and be glad to help you out. But on behalf of Washington Labs and the whole Washington Labs Academy team, I'd like to thank you for attending today. Hope to see you here next month. You can go ahead and sign up for South America, and I think later today they'll open up sign-ups for the China Compliance Lab webinar in August. If you've got ideas for any areas of the world you'd like to see covered, I'll be starting looking at the 2019 schedule soon, so send me what those regions you'd like to see. If there's different areas you'd like to see on, I've been focusing on wireless approvals, but if you're more interested in some product safety stuff, just let me know, and I'll get some things scheduled in there for you. Be sure to tell your friends about these. You can share the slide decks we're sending out. We're also sending you a link to the recording. You may want to share with your colleagues to let them take a look at this. The recordings will take a couple of days for them to edit and get posted up on the site, but there will be an email coming out with that. So thank you for attending today, and we hope to see you next month. Thanks.